A couple was left seriously injured and several suspects are facing serious criminal charges following a brutal fight that took place in Cincinnati, Ohio last week. Viral footage of the beatdown shows an unconscious woman lying face up on the pavement outside a nightclub, with blood dripping from her mouth while a group of assailants attacked the male victim. On Monday, police announced assault and aggravated riot charges against 5 suspects. The following day, the authorities arrested 34-year-old Montianez Merriweather and 24-year-old Dakota Vernon for their alleged roles in the attack. Just weeks earlier, Merriweather had been indicted on gun charges in an unrelated case. He was out on bail when the assault took place. Both suspects are accused of punching the victims while other suspects stomped on their heads. Merriweather and Vernon are currently in the custody of the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office, along with a third suspect, 39-year-old Jermaine Matthews. In the meantime, federal authorities have launched an investigation into the case. Number 28. Angela Lin. A Google engineer was killed in a freak accident at Yosemite National Park after a sequoia tree branch fell and struck her in the head. 29-year-old Angela Lin and her boyfriend David Hua were hiking when several branches suddenly came down. Hua closed his eyes to protect himself and opened them to find Lin lying face up on the ground with a pool of blood beneath her head. He called 911 and performed CPR while waiting for emergency responders to arrive, but Lin was beyond saving. Medical personnel later determined that she most likely died instantly, leaving Hua in disbelief over the unexpected tragedy. A public affairs official recently told SF Gate that an investigation into the incident is ongoing, and Hua said that Lin's loved ones are seeking more information about the tragedy in hopes of preventing a similar incident from occurring in the future. Number 27. Rustom Bhagwagar. A Delta Airlines pilot has been grounded indefinitely after law enforcement stormed the cockpit of a plane that had just touched down in San Francisco. 34-year-old Rustom Bhagwagar is accused of abusing the daughter of his ex-girlfriend, 45-year-old Jennifer Powell, who was also arrested in connection with the case. They are each facing 24 felony charges for their alleged crimes, which authorities say went on for years until the couple broke up. Bhagwagar and Powell did not enter pleas during a court hearing last Wednesday and are due to return for another hearing on August 15th. In the meantime, they both remain in custody, with bail set at $15 million, and are banned from contacting the victim. If convicted as charged, they could each face a sentence of up to 15 years to life in prison. Number 26. Andres Caceres Jaldin. Newly released surveillance footage shows the harrowing moment an accused kidnapper tried to abduct a little girl at the Fair Oaks Shopping Center in Fairfax County, Virginia. The victim had wandered away from an indoor play area at a JCPenney store when a man snatched her up in his arms and began walking away with her. Luckily, the girl was quickly returned to safety after her mother confronted the suspect, who was later identified as 26-year-old Andres Caceres Jaldin. After handing the child over to her mother, Jaldin fled the scene in a vehicle that had just been stolen from a nearby auto repair shop. The vehicle was tracked to a hotel in Chantilly, where police arrested him on suspicion of abduction and grand larceny. Jaldin has a lengthy criminal record which includes allegations of assault against 3 family members and arrests for similar crimes against the same victims while out on bail. He remains held without bond at the Fairfax County Adult Detention Center as he awaits his next court hearing. Number 25. Kevin Sinning. A Cheyenne, Wyoming man is facing criminal charges after stealing a golf cart and going on a destructive joyride at the Buffalo Niagara International Airport on Thursday morning. 29-year-old Kevin Sinning seemed unfazed in bystander footage of the incident, which shows him cruising around the terminal at around 1 o'clock in the morning. Onlookers speculated that he was drunk, as he ignored orders to stop and paid no attention to the people around him. After weaving around several wet floor signs, Sinning drove the golf cart onto a moving walkway, where it got stuck between the narrow railings. A haze filled the terminal as the vehicle damaged the conveyor belt, leaving a trail of broken glass in its wake. Sinning, who was described by law enforcement officials as visibly intoxicated, was charged with criminal mischief, disorderly conduct, criminal possession of a stolen property, criminal nuisance, and grand larceny. Number 24. Michael Lee Ansel. 39-year-old Michael Lee Ansel was so upset by the price of cigarettes at a Coffee County, Georgia convenience store that he allegedly threatened to kill the employees and send them back in the box. Deputies responded to the scene last Wednesday after receiving reports of an armed robbery and spoke with witnesses who said that Ansel left the store twice before returning with a hatchet and threatening to shoot workers. He fled the scene before law enforcement arrived but was arrested just a few hours later. During questioning, Ansel reportedly admitted to threatening the store's employees after expecting to pay $6 for a pack of cigarettes and being charged $12. He jumped into a nearby pond in an attempt to evade his arrest, but had a seizure in the water and was rescued by deputies. Ansel has an extensive criminal history, which includes prior convictions for burglary, theft, and other crimes, spanning a 20-year period. He was released from prison last August after serving time for an unrelated case and is facing charges of terroristic threats and obstructing law enforcement officers. Number 23. Beverly Slaughter. A Florida woman with a poor driving record could face years behind bars following her arrest last Wednesday on over a dozen charges, including vehicular homicide and leaving the scene of a crash involving death. The incident occurred in April when a car driven by 25-year-old Beverly Yvonne Slaughter T-boned a Nissan Altima at an intersection in Fort Lauderdale at a high rate of speed. The Altima's 2 occupants were rushed to a nearby hospital, where one of the victims died from their injuries. After fleeing on foot and being arrested near the crime scene, Slaughter reportedly told police that she ran because her boyfriend told her to. Her driver's license has been suspended since 2021, and she already has 1 prior conviction under her belt for driving with a suspended license. In 2023, she was arrested for DUI, fleeing or eluding law enforcement, and reckless driving. After considering her checkered history when it comes to road safety, the judge remanded Slaughter to the Broward County Jail without bond as she awaits her next court hearing. Number 22. Sarah Nowlin. 40-year-old Sarah Nowlin has been sentenced to prison time for the hit-and-run death of 34-year-old Calvin Anthony Garlick, who was internally decapitated after being struck by the defendant's vehicle in Pensacola, Florida, in January of 2024. Garlick was riding home from work on his scooter at the time of the accident and was found unconscious in a ditch. By the time emergency responders arrived, Nowlin had fled the scene. She attempted to hide her vehicle in a wooded area where police found an empty wine bottle in the vehicle. Her young child was with her when the accident occurred, but Nowlin lied about being responsible for Garlick's death, claiming she had hit a deer. Nowlin pleaded no contest to leaving the scene of a crash involving death and was sentenced on Wednesday to 15 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 4 years. Number 21. Jazmin Featherstone. A North Carolina police officer has landed on the other side of the law for allegedly threatening her neighbor and using her position of authority in the process. 26-year-old Jazmin Featherstone of Charlotte, Mecklenburg was off duty when she and her mother got into an argument with the victim over allegations of stolen mail. According to police, Featherstone told the victim she was going to F her up and reveal incriminating things about her because she is the police, while a relative of the suspect is accused of pointing a gun at the victim. In her complaint, the victim described Featherstone's actions as unprovoked and motivated by a dispute over the victim's alleged attempt to put a mailbox on their property. Featherstone was charged with communicating threats and is currently on unpaid administrative leave, pending the outcome of her case and an ongoing internal investigation. Number 20. Valerie Bonner. 54-year-old Valerie Bonner of Foley, Alabama, is facing criminal charges after the decomposing body of a man was found in her home last Tuesday. Police made the discovery while performing a welfare check at the request of a neighbor, and it was immediately clear that the man had been deceased for some time. He reportedly died from a drug overdose in Bonner's bedroom, but Bonner failed to report the incident in order to avoid possible legal trouble. Just 6 months earlier, her husband had been found dead in the same home from an overdose. In addition to failing to report the recent death to law enforcement, Bonner is also accused of throwing the man's wallet and cell phone in a dumpster in an attempt to conceal his identity. Authorities believe the deceased passed away anywhere from several days to 2 weeks before his body was found. Records show that Bonner is currently in custody at the Baldwin County Detention Center on abuse of a corpse and evidence tampering charges, with bail set at $5,500. Number 19. Tiffany Gregory. A Kentucky woman stands accused of enlisting her own children in a plot to make her former mother-in-law suffer a serious allergic reaction, resulting in her arrest last Tuesday on multiple charges. 34-year-old Tiffany Gregory was taken into custody in Louisville based on allegations that she sent the victim threatening messages over a several-month period and drove past their house multiple times. One of the messages reportedly contained a surreptitiously filmed video of the victim standing inside a local Walgreens store. Gregory's arrest came just days after police say she told her children to give their grandmother a gift bag containing crushed bell peppers. Knowing the victim is highly allergic to peppers, the kids refused to comply with their mother's orders. So a friend of Gregory's left the bag on the victim's car, where it was found by the woman's husband. According to authorities, Gregory then took it upon herself to smear a peppery substance on the victim's car door handle, causing her to be hospitalized after suffering a severe reaction. Gregory pleaded not guilty to wanton endangerment, stalking, and unlawful transaction with a minor, and remains in custody with bail set at $25,000. Number 18. David Michael Gibson. A 49-year-old Texas man is heading to prison for 10 years after stuffing the body of his deceased father into a fridge in his garage and chaining it shut. The punishment against David Michael Gibson was handed down last Wednesday following his guilty plea to tampering with evidence with the intent to impair a human corpse. His arrest came after police discovered the badly decomposed corpse of Daniel Gibson during a welfare check in Bexar County in August of 2024. Prior to the discovery of the victim's body, Gibson posed as his father in an attempt to evade suspicion after relatives reported not hearing from Daniel in several months. After confirming through family members that he was lying, detectives searched the home and immediately spotted a human head when they opened the fridge. Gibson must serve at least half his sentence, 5 years behind bars before becoming eligible for parole. Number 17. Frederick Lewis Wiggington. A Virginia man who murdered his wife after she predicted her own death will spend the rest of his life behind bars after being found guilty at trial. 45-year-old Elsie Mae Wiggington vanished in June of 2023 after sending her sister a text message stating, "He's going to kill me." More than a year later, in August of 2024, Elsie's remains were found buried in a concrete slab on a property in Amherst County, leading to the arrest of her estranged husband, 38-year-old Frederick Lewis Wiggington. The former couple were in the process of divorcing at the time of Elsie's disappearance, after she accused Frederick of adultery. A jailhouse informant testified during Frederick's trial that he had admitted to killing his wife with intentions to frame the victim's brother for the crime. Frederick was found guilty of first-degree murder and gun charges following a 3-day trial and was sentenced on Wednesday to life in prison plus 3 years. Number 16. Britney Andrus. 29-year-old Britney Andrus of Sebring, Florida, is facing a life sentence for robbing and murdering her husband's elderly great-grandfather so she could run off to Michigan with her boyfriend. 88-year-old James Little was beaten to death in October of 2020, roughly a week after Andrus moved into his home while her husband was in jail. Andrus and her boyfriend at the time, Tyler Best, concocted a plot to steal valuables from Little's home and staged the crime to look like a home invasion. Authorities zeroed in on Andrus and Best as suspects after relatives told police that only a household or family member would know where to find a safe that was stolen from the house. Neither of the suspects admitted to killing Little, even after they were connected to the crime through fingerprints. They were both charged a year later, and Andrus was found guilty of second-degree murder, burglary, and grand theft on Friday. Best testified against her at trial after pleading guilty to second-degree murder and other charges, and both defendants appear to be awaiting sentencing. Number 15. Bryan Demarais. 31-year-old Minnesota resident Bryan Demarais has been sentenced to decades in prison for murdering his wife after he found messages that made him believe she was having an affair. He shot 29-year-old Kayla Demarais in the head in late December of 2023 while their children were in the home, then called 911 and admitted to killing the victim after asking police to remove the kids through a bedroom window so they wouldn't see their mother's bullet-riddled body. Demarais surrendered to law enforcement. He later explained that he and Kayla had been fighting about marital issues, including money problems and Kayla's alleged infidelity. The couple's children told police that their father had returned home early from work and gave them a snack before arguing with their mother in another room, where they overheard yelling and a gunshot. During a court hearing last Tuesday, Demarais pleaded guilty to second-degree murder involving the use of a firearm and 2 counts of child endangerment. He was sentenced to just over 30 years in prison, with credit for time served, and will likely serve around 2/3 of his term, or roughly 19 years, before becoming eligible for parole. Number 14. Joshua Ragan. An Iowa man is facing a litany of charges for beating his grandfather with golf clubs and spraying wasp repellent into the wounds. Davenport police were called to a residence in response to a domestic disturbance report last Monday and found the 71-year-old victim suffering from serious blunt force injuries and lacerations in the basement. He told officers that his grandson, 38-year-old Joshua Ragan, had struck him in the back of the head with a golf club before pushing him over and continuing to beat him in the head and body. The victim also accused Ragan of spraying him with wasp repellent while threatening to electrocute him, stealing 3 of his guns, and disabling his phone so he couldn't call for help. Ragan reportedly admitted to the attack during questioning and was charged with assault while participating in a felony, 3 counts of possessing a firearm as a felon, and willful injury. He also faces several misdemeanor charges, including assault with intent, false imprisonment, and older individual assault, and is currently detained in lieu of a $25,000 secured bond. Number 13. William Bordsen. A North Carolina man is accused of stomping and beating his drunk roommate to death because he was frustrated with the victim for asking him for cigarettes while recording videos of the crime with his cell phone. Officers found the victim, 65-year-old Robert Murphy, dead at his Charlotte home last Monday while responding to a call at around 11 a.m. The victim's body was covered in blunt force injuries and lacerations, and the suspect, 40-year-old William Bordsen, told police that the 2 men had gotten into an argument when he refused to buy Murphy cigarettes at 4 o'clock in the morning. The dispute escalated into a fistfight, and Bordsen said he used a box fan to strike Murphy in the head several times. Murphy fell to the floor and was trying to get up when Bordsen stomped on his stomach and face repeatedly, which the suspect said he regretted doing and admitted was unnecessary. Videos found on Bordsen's phone showed the bloody and injured victim lying on the floor while the alleged killer spoke to him in a derogatory manner, and the timestamps show that Bordsen waited until 6 hours after the attack to call 911. He's currently being held at the Mecklenburg County Jail on a first-degree murder charge, with bail set at $400,000. Number 12. Jailen Lupton. 18-year-old Jailen Lupton is facing charges that could put her away for life after she beat her own grandmother to death at the victim's home in Irvington, Alabama. Deputies arrived at the residence last week to find the victim, 70-year-old Diane Trest, unresponsive and suffering from head trauma in her front yard, with a mallet lying nearby. Multiple witnesses implicated Lupton in the homicide, including a neighbor who said that the teen approached their front door and admitted to killing her grandmother. The neighbor also accused Lupton of trying to push her way through the front door, leading to a shoving match and a physical struggle. Lupton reportedly left, then returned to the residence and forced her way inside, where she searched for the neighbor's car keys. She's charged with murder and second-degree burglary and is currently in custody while awaiting a bond hearing. A law enforcement spokesperson revealed that drugs were found at the crime scene, indicating the possibility that Lupton acted in a state of methamphetamine-induced paranoia, and 21 dogs were reportedly seized from the residence. Number 11. Jonathon Villegas. An accused killer has been arrested for the shooting death of 23-year-old Lupita Ponce Penaloza, whose bullet-riddled body was found in the attached garage of a Pasco County, Washington home. 30-year-old Jonathon Villegas was quickly identified as the prime suspect in the case and was apprehended in Pendleton, Oregon, several days later, and is currently at the Umatilla County Jail while awaiting extradition to Washington, where he faces second-degree murder and gun charges. According to court documents, Ponce Penaloza sent text messages to friends saying that she might need them to call 911 after meeting Villegas at the residence where the killing occurred. She also suspected Jonathon Villegas of setting her up, and police say that Villegas is one of 2 men who pulled a .45 caliber pistol and shot her during the meeting. Authorities have not released any details regarding the second suspect due to the ongoing nature of the investigation, but court documents indicate that Villegas' 2 roommates gave conflicting versions of the events leading up to the shooting. Number 10. Sean Couture. Desperate to stop his grandmother from calling the police and telling them that she had found his gun, 25-year-old Sean Couture shot her to death at the family's Waukesha, Wisconsin home in August of 2024. During a court hearing last Tuesday, he was sentenced to 26 years to life in prison after killing the victim, Nancy Lovejoy. Couture called his parents, who were out of town at the time, and admitted to the crime, prompting them to contact the police. He refused to exit the home when law enforcement arrived, so police monitored his movements using a drone and retrieved Lovejoy's body when he went into another room. Couture was eventually apprehended and taken to a hospital where tests showed a blood alcohol content of more than 5 times the legal limit for driving. As part of an agreement with prosecutors, he agreed to plead guilty to first-degree intentional homicide with a domestic abuse modifier in exchange for the sentence that was handed down. Number 9. Tracy Zahl. On Friday, news outlets announced the arrest of a 49-year-old Oklahoma attorney named Tracy Zahl, who stands accused of trying to abduct a toddler from a daycare in Oklahoma City. According to court documents, Zahl entered the building through an unlocked door and went to a classroom, where she grabbed a young girl and instructed the child to follow her. A teacher noticed what was happening and told Zahl to leave, but the suspect allegedly stayed at the building and followed a group of children to their classroom. Before being kicked off the property, she told staff members that she had been sent by God to be with the children. Police found Zahl at her home less than a mile from the daycare. She immediately admitted to making a mistake and was arrested for kidnapping, and is currently being detained on a $25,000 bond. Records reveal that she was suspended from the Bar Association in 2011 for felony prescription forgery and arrested in 2021 for threatening to kill her former employer and co-worker, indicating the possibility of ongoing issues in her life. Number 8. Mindy Osteen. A Florida father is dead and his former partner is behind bars for killing him as he picked their children up from a daycare center in Stark. According to police, 34-year-old Mindy Osteen shot Christopher Jones multiple times with a 9mm handgun while saying, "You got to die." The killing was reportedly captured on surveillance video, which reportedly shows Osteen lurking near the crime scene before taking the gun out of her backpack and opening fire on Jones while he loaded the kids into his car. Witnesses implicated Osteen in the shooting, and she was arrested without incident after surrendering at the scene and claiming that she had acted in self-defense. News reports announced charges against her last Monday, including first-degree murder, cruelty toward a child, larceny, and weapon possession, which have landed her behind bars without bond, pending the outcome of her case. Number 7. Blake Hornsby. A Florida man who's accused of killing his mother was crying and offered a bizarre explanation for his actions when police arrived at the crime scene in Washington County. Deputies responded to the residence last Wednesday, where 37-year-old Blake Hornsby answered the door in a distraught state and with bleeding injuries. Through tears, he directed law enforcement into the house where they found 64-year-old Mary Jane Ward of Quitman, Georgia, unresponsive and with obvious injuries to the neck. She was pronounced dead after life-saving efforts failed, and Hornsby was reportedly too emotional to communicate with clarity, beyond stating that he and his mother had been attacked earlier that day. Neighbors and relatives told police that no one else was home at the time of the attack, causing investigators to become even more suspicious of Hornsby. During questioning, he said that the robots made him do it, but he failed to explain what it was. Hornsby is currently awaiting a competency evaluation ahead of his next court hearing, which is scheduled for September 8th. Number 6. Shotsie Michael Buck Hayes. A 38-year-old Virginia politician is fighting for his life after being doused with 5 gallons of gasoline and set ablaze at his workplace. Danville City Councilman Lee Vogler attempted to run after a man entered the building and dumped the gasoline on him, but the suspect caught up to him outside and set him on fire. He was rushed to the hospital, where he's being treated for burns covering 60% of his body. The alleged assailant, 29-year-old Shotsie Michael Buck Hayes, fled the scene but was arrested just a few blocks away. He reportedly admitted to committing the attack, which police say was motivated by a personal issue between the two men and was not politically motivated. Buck Hayes also confessed that he acted with the intent to kill Vogler and was detained without bail on charges of attempted first-degree murder and aggravated malicious wounding. He's due back in court on September 30th. Number 5. Anh-Thu Nguyen. in the latest example of what seems like a never-ending string of weekly plane wrecks. 44-year-old pilot Anh-Thu Nguyen has passed away after crashing her plane in Greenwood, Indiana. She was trying to become the first Vietnamese-born woman to fly solo around the world when her small aircraft spiraled out of the sky and crash-landed behind a gas station. Nguyen was pronounced dead at the scene just 3 days into her journey as she began the second leg of her global flight. Just minutes before the plane went down, she had written in a Facebook post that she hoped her accomplishments would inspire future generations of Asian women to become pilots and pursue STEM careers. An ongoing investigation into the cause of the crash is being led by the Federal Aviation Administration and National Transportation Safety Board. Number 4. Isaiah Gurley. A New York City man has been released from custody following his arrest for kicking his friend's dog to death and lighting its body on fire in the street. 29-year-old Isaiah Gurley was dog-sitting in the Ozone Park neighborhood in Queens when he killed the pit bull during the early morning hours. The dog's charred body was found on the pavement, and surveillance footage from a nearby store reportedly shows the suspect stealing the bottle of oil that he is accused of using as an accelerant. Police released images of Gurley from a security video, and he was arrested last Monday after a civilian recognized him inside the Queens Center Mall. He has since been indicted on charges of aggravated animal cruelty, arson, reckless endangerment, and petty larceny, none of which are bail eligible. Gurley is currently free as he awaits his next court hearing, which is scheduled for September 17th. Number 3. Dakota Hawver. 3 people are dead after a New York man opened fire at the Grand Sierra Resort in Reno, Nevada last Monday for reasons that remain unclear. 27-year-old Dakota Hawver has no known connection to his victims, which include a Los Angeles restaurant owner named Andrew Canepa and 33-year-old Justin Aguila, who was in town for a bachelor party. He has no known history of mental health issues and no criminal record, leaving his motive for the crime a complete mystery for the time being. Hawver was critically wounded in the incident but is expected to survive and will face criminal charges for his alleged crimes in the meantime. 3 injured victims have received medical treatment and are also expected to survive. Number 2. Cudjoe Young. An Arizona man has been charged in connection with killing an exotic dancer in the Phoenix area more than 2 years ago. 22-year-old Mercedes Vega was found dead in a burned-out car alongside a highway in April of 2023. On the very same day, she was due to testify against 29-year-old Cudjoe Young, who she had accused of burglarizing her apartment in 2020. The young woman had been held at gunpoint by a masked man after arriving home from work, resulting in an armed robbery charge against Young. Prior to her murder, Vega was abducted outside her apartment building's garage. Her body was found before sunrise the next morning, bearing telltale evidence of a gruesome end. According to prosecutors, Young beat the victim and poured bleach down her throat before lighting the car ablaze. He was indicted on charges of first-degree murder, kidnapping, arson, theft, and armed robbery with a deadly weapon last Thursday, and is being held without bond. A second suspect, 22-year-old Sincere Hayes, is facing the same charges and is in custody with bonds set at $4 million. Number 1. Moshe Haimoff. A Jewish influencer and luxury watch seller has gone public after being robbed of $560,000 worth of jewelry. Better known as the Watch King, 39-year-old Moshe Haimoff was ambushed outside his home in Queens, New York in broad daylight last week by men posing as construction workers. Armed with a stun gun, one of the suspects tased Haimoff in the leg as he was getting into his car at around 10 in the morning. A second attacker appeared and pinned him to the lawn as he tried to escape. The assailants stole Haimoff's chain, watch, and 3 bracelets before fleeing in a waiting getaway car driven by a third suspect. Speaking with the New York Post last Thursday, Haimoff said he believes he was targeted because his neighbor left home just a few minutes before him and wasn't attacked. He is now afraid to leave his house, but is grateful to be alive and plans to hire more security while the perpetrators remain at large.